Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know how sometimes I'll get frustrated and I'll say something like, I don't ever want to be lectured to about X topic by any Democrat ever again. You know, I don't ever want to hear the words democracy come out of a leftist facehole ever again. I will immediately disregard everything they say thereafter after the word was said. You can't lecture me about democracy, as your party and the powerful elite politically connected to your party are working behind the scenes every election season to subvert democratic will. You can't lecture me about abuse of power when your political party is currently trying to imprison your top political opponent, and you cannot and will not ever lecture me about the Constitution or constitutional rights when this is your party. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so New Mexico's new governor, elected back in 2019, Democrat Michelle Lujan Grisham, is attempting to do the unimaginable. This headline says it all. Soros-backed New Mexico governor riles conservatives with firearm suspension order. New Mexico governor, whose campaign was backed by leftist billionaire George Soros, riled up conservatives and gun owners after she issued an emergency order suspending the right to carry firearms in public in Albuquerque and the surrounding county for at least 30 days. The Democratic governor said she felt compelled to take action after a spate of recent shootings, including the loss of an 11-year-old boy outside a minor league baseball stadium this week. Here's what she had to say.
Yeah. But your point is valid.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carrying license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms. In this emergency, this 11-year-old and all these parents who have lost all these children, they deserve my attention to have the debate about whether or not in an emergency we can create a safer environment. Because what about their constitutional rights? I took an oath to uphold those too. And if we ignore this growing problem without being bold, I've said to every other New Mexican, your rights are subrogated to theirs. And they are not, in my view. If I'm unsafe, who's standing up for that right? If this climate is so out of control, somebody should do something. I'm doing as much as I know to do.
This is how modern Democrats operate. She's essentially arguing that your constitutional rights can be simply suspended at will based on her or I guess any politician's discretion. Now, of course, I'm sure this only applies to things that Democrats agree with, right? These people are absolutely insane. I mean, let's have a conversation about the concept of an authoritarian leader. You know, leftists argue that Ron DeSantis was an authoritarian for, quote, banning books, even though that's obviously a gross exaggeration and misrepresentation as to what happened, but everything Ron DeSantis did was pretty much by the book. You know, the stuff that's going on in Florida is going through the proper legislative process. This Democrat governor in New Mexico literally just said, I am suspending legal firearms owners' Second Amendment rights because I want to, because criminals are running rampant. How does that make any sense? You mean to tell me that the criminals who are committing crimes with firearms, illegal firearms, are now going to be deterred because you suspended legal, law-abiding gun owners with registered guns right to carry in public and conceal carry? You know, make it make sense. It obviously doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes sense in this damn story is one thing. The fact that Mrs. Lujan Grisham is a Soros-backed Democrat. That's the only thing that makes sense. That's the only thing that I'm looking at here and going, yep, that adds up. I mean, the absolute sheer insanity of these leftist policies. It's all a freaking experiment. You know, it's presented on the surface as just a Democrat politician who cares so much. The kids, man, the kids. It's presented as a Democrat politician who's fearless and taking action. She don't care about no laws. She don't care about no system. She don't care about no patriarchy or no constitution. No, she's gonna do what she's gotta do to protect the kids. That's the way they're presenting it. But really, it has nothing to do with the kids, because this kind of policy is going to make the streets a whole lot more dangerous than they were previously. It has to do with one thing and one thing alone: pushing further and further and further, stepping over that line and seeing how many times or how far they can go and continue to get away with it. That's exactly what it is, folks. It's a slow, methodical experiment and practice, purposeful tactic to see how far they can go, how much they can get away with. It's the same thing that we saw in 2020. The suspension of your rights, the suspension of your civil liberties. An emergency's been declared, therefore we can do what we want. You know, they got away with it once, why can't they get away with it twice? They get away with it twice, why can't they get away with it 3 or 4, maybe 5 times, 10 times? Until eventually, it's simply the new law of the land, the new status quo, a new Democrat order where the Constitution is no more. You know, that seems to be exactly where we're marching. Your rights, not relevant. Seems like the only right Democrats care for these days is the right to abort, which, by the way, to show you just how extreme this Soros-backed governor is, she's the same woman we used in a video I think a week and a half ago, highlighting the new modern Democrat stance on abortion.
So nail down for me then, how do you define, because up till now, my understanding is there wasn't a limit on when in a pregnancy a woman could receive an abortion. Have you set any limit on
There are no limits. So for us,
that's very controversial.
It can be. I mean, look, it's the 1% of all abortions, and that's still a sizable number of abortions worldwide.
1% over 21 weeks of pregnancy.
Correct.
Thought I'd throw that in, a little quick flashback. But back on the point, you know, Democrats who are lecturing about authoritarianism don't care about individual rights or civil liberties. They're trying to take your First Amendment away. They show a total disrespect and disregard for the First Amendment. They're pro-regime censorship. In other words, they support Joe Biden spawning a ministry of truth. The people who warn us of authoritarianism and tend to use, let's say, 1940s Germany as part of their argument are the same ones supporting the exact same kind of thing, the same type of top-down executive king-style power to be able to control and suppress free speech. They're the same people trying to take your guns away. They're the same people who thought it was perfectly acceptable to mandate procedures or to shut people's businesses down. What a bunch of clowns. What a bunch of clear hypocrites. But at least on this issue or on this topic, there's checks and balances built into the system for a reason. Obviously, this abuse of executive authority on a state level here by Mrs. Grisham is going to fall flat. The Supreme Court will never let it happen. In fact, her own police departments, her own sheriffs, are already essentially telling her to take a hike.
And almost immediately, this decision sparked a lot of opposition from many different areas in our state.
Yeah, and the governor was expecting that. She said today that she was expecting legal challenges, and she said that not all the public safety officers that she met with to make this decision agree with her, and that includes Bernalillo County Sheriff John Allen. In a statement, he says, "While I understand and appreciate the urgency, the temporary ban challenges the foundation of our Constitution. I am wary of placing my deputies in positions that could lead to civil liability conflicts, as well as the potential risks posed by prohibiting law-abiding citizens from their constitutional right to self-defense." APD Chief Harold Medina sent a message to his officers tonight saying they will not be enforcing the governor's order. Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller echoed that message, saying that's up to state police officers. New Mexico Republican leaders, an Albuquerque city councilor, and police union leaders have also sharply criticized the governor's decision, largely calling it unconstitutional.
Her unconstitutional actions clearly won't work, and that's a good thing. But I'd argue the better thing is that we now have a clear picture. She showed the world exactly who and what she is, and there's no undoing that. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. You know that we'd love to have you here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.